Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to your discussion for week 2 for Business 101. Happy Friday. Without further ado, let's just get into it. I hope everyone had a lovely, lovely week. So our agenda for today is we're going to start with our Python review. So just going over the terminologies you guys will learn this week. Then we'll do a quick little Biz Connect where we'll talk about how some of the functions we learned this week are connected to business practices. And then we'll go ahead and get into our discussion activity for today. All right, so beginning with for loop. So for loops is a definite loop. So it basically tells you how many times it'll run. It'll repeat a block of code for a set number of times. What's important to remember with that is that it repeats the block for a set number. And how it does that is with a range. So with our ranges, it defines how many times the loop actually runs. So if you remember in lecture, it'll be something like for range in like 1 to 6. And remember with the counting, it would actually count 1 to 5. And then we have our variables, and our variables change each time the loop runs. And then a break stops the loop, which we'll talk about in a little more in a little bit. So now our while loops. So our while loops differ in a little or because they are an infinite loop. So it basically keeps running as long as a condition is true. So the condition is checked e before each loop runs. And then, let's get rid of that. And then again, our break ends a loop when the condition is met. So you guys, this is a quick little chart. Oh, I don't know what just happened. I don't know if you guys saw that, but like my screen did a weird thing. So with this chart, our repetition type is just for loops, it's a set number of types. Times for a while loop, it runs while a condition is true. For a for loop, it's best used for when you know how many times to repeat. A while loop, when you don't know how many times you'll need to repeat. And then just here are some example of some uses that you guys went over in lecture as well. Okay, so we're not done yet. I know that was a lot of terms, but we're not done. You guys also learned while true. So what it means is basically that the condition is always true. When the condition is always true, the loop will run forever on purpose. So with this one, you will always need a break because without a break, the loop will essentially just never stop. And that's reiterated here. You always need a break. The condition is always true, so the loop runs forever. Oh, I did not update that. I'm so sorry, guys. But basically, you need a break because otherwise it's just going to keep going. Um, but this is a little bit of a breakdown. For our while, the condition, you write the condition that can become false on its own. So basically it'll break once the condition is not met. And then when to use, when you know how many times something repeats. And then for our while true, the condition is always true. The loop never stops by itself. How it stops, it always stops when it hits a break. And then when to use, when you don't know how many times you're waiting on user input or retrying until correct. So this could be like a password entry. So how does this stuff relate to business? I'm so glad you guys asked because I got to answer. So our for loop send emails to all 500 customers. This is just an example of how it could be used. So instead of sending a individual email and pressing send for 500 people, it's just automatically going to do that for those 500 customers. And then we have our while loop. So our while loops keep checking inventory until the stock below drops below the threshold. So it gives it a condition. And then our counters track how many orders were processed this week. And then for automation, we can flag every report that shows a loss without manual review. Ooh, I put an extra S there. Okay, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get into your collab discussion. So I know you guys have the screenshots from today. So go ahead and just follow along with me as I go through them on here. So we have four different questions asked for this one. And if you guys noticed, they're kind of the same format as your homeworks. And it's also important to note that this format is going to closely resemble to what you guys will be doing day of test. So it's good to start practicing getting used to these types of questions. We have our first set, which is determine the output, our second, which is spot the error and fix it. And then we have our code on your own segment. But we're going to go ahead and start with determine the output. So before we answer these, we're going to break down what the code means and then come back up to answer them. Usually I would have you guys like explain the logic as we go line by line to try to figure out the output together, but since it's via online, I'll be doing a verbal walkthrough with y'all. So let's just read the questions before we get into it. Which specific order numbers print priority handling? List them. Okay. What is the value of priority count at the end? Number three, order 8 is between 5 and 11, so the first two parts of that condition are true. Why doesn't order 8 print priority handling? And number four, the condition uses less than or equal to 11, not less than 11. What would change about the answer to question 3 if used less than 11 instead? Okay, with all that in mind, let's go ahead and break down the code. So we have our order count, which is set to 0. So basically we create a variable called order count, and this variable is going to keep track of how many orders we have processed, we have processed total. And we always start our counter variable at 0 before the loop begins. And then we have our priority count, which is kind of the same idea. Priority count will track how many orders qualified for priority handling, and we start at 0 because or before the loop, so we have a clean starting point, basically. I hope that made sense. So then we go into our for loop, and it gives us a range of 1 to 16 and gives us the numbers. We have to remember this gives us all the way to number 15, not to 16. It doesn't count that last number, remember. Excuse me. So each time the loop runs order number, it takes on the next value in that range. So the first time through the order numbers, it'll go 1, then 2, then 3, all the way up until 15. And then we have this line. What line is this? Line 5. Um, every single time the loop runs, we add 1 to the order count. This is basically like a standard counter. Um, so after the first count, it'll add 1, then 2, then 3, and it'll just keep adding on till we get to that total of 15 orders. Think of it like inventory, or an inventory counter. That's how I like to think of it. And then we go on to line 6. So we're right here now. And here we have our if statement or if condition, and it has all three parts that are joined by an and statement. So we have our first part here, our second part here, and our third part right here. And they're all connected through an and. So what does this mean? I'm so glad you guys asked. Yay. So in part 1, right here, It's saying the order number is less than or equal to 5. In the second part, it's saying order number is less than or equal to 11. And then in the last one, right here, it is saying that the order number is not equal to 8. So only orders that pass all three conditions will get priority handling. And it has to be all three because they're conjoined by an and. And if you recall from our last discussion where we talked about and ors means that at least one condition has to be true. But here it has and, so all conditions have to be true. So now let's go into our next line, priority counter. Um, yeah, so line 7, we have, sorry, I lost my train of thought. Oh my goodness, sorry. Um, Basically, if we made it into this block, this order qualifies for priority handling. So we would add 1 to the priority count to keep track of how many have qualified for so far. And then we would go into our print statement and print a message for this order using an F string. And the order number that is in the bracket would get replaced with the actual number. So this prints something like order 5, um, semicolon or colon, will get priority handling. And then we go into our else statement. And if the if condition above was false, we come here instead. And this catches everything that did not qualify. So that would be like orders 1 to 4 because that would be um, not within the parameters of the condition, or order 8 or orders 12 to 15, because those would not fit the conditions required that were set. And then we go to our print. In our print, we print a standard handling message for this order. Um, and using the same F string from the order number that would get replaced with the actual number. And then we go down here, and this line is outside of the loop. So you notice how it has no indentation. So it breaks this loop. And it only runs once after all 15 orders have been processed, okay? And it prints the final value of the order count, which will be 15. And then we have our last print statement, which is right here. And it is also outside the loop, so it only runs once at the very, very end. And it prints the final value of the priority count, which will be 6. So let's go back up and see our questions. So our first one, this is also when I would have you guys go on your own and do this part, but since we're doing it online, um, I'll be doing it with you. Don't worry. Okay, so this one, which specific order numbers print priority handling? That would be 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, and 11. And then what is the value of priority count at the end? I just said it, so I'm not gonna give it to you right now. So I just said it. And then order 8 is 5 and 11, so the first two parts of the condition are true. Why doesn't order 8 print priority handling? So we know priority 8 is between 5 and 11, so the first two parts of the condition are true. So for this third condition, the order number does not equal 8. So remember here, where it says it does not equal 8. So that condition is false because all three are joined by an and every single one of them has to be true. So one false makes the whole thing false. So order 8 falls into something else, or falls into the else, and prints the standard handling. And then question 4, we have the condition uses less than or equal to 11, not less than 11. What would change about the answer to question 3 if it used less than 11 instead? So with this one, order 11 would be affected with less than 11 because order 11 no longer passes the second condition, so it would print the standard handling instead of the priority handling, instead of or the way order 8 is unaffected, but it still fails the not equal to 8. So regardless, so basically this is needed because it includes 11 in within that statement. Okay, so that is our determine the output. Let's move on to STE. I hope I'm doing good on time. Okay, so with our STE, we have a bank wants to track withdrawals during a customer session. The customer can enter a withdrawal amount as many times as they want or type done to end the session early. The bank rule, keep a running total of successful withdrawals for the session. If they knew withdrawal would make a session total reach 500 or more, reject that withdrawal at the end of the session, or end the session. And whenever the session ends, print the final amount successfully withdrawn. There are 2 errors in the code. All right, so this is the code we were given. I'm gonna give you guys 2 seconds to look it over or like pause, I guess. I don't know. Okay, so remember with STEs, we're spotting the errors. So remember we talked about how there is a, what is it called? Syntax and logic error. So we want to figure out what kind is here. And since we are mostly just dealing with syntax at the moment, syntax just means there's something missing within like the code. There could be a semicolon, it could be miscapitalization or so on. Um, but here we have while true, or we have, it starts with our counter, withdrawn equals to 0. And then we have our while true, entry equals input, enter withdrawal amount or done to end session. If entry does not equal done, print session ended, withdrawn total, and then it pulls the withdrawn total or total withdrawn, and then it breaks. Amount equals to float. Entry, remember we use float for decimals. Total withdrawn equals total withdrawn plus amount. If total withdrawn is greater than or equal to 500, print withdrawn limit reached, session ending, and break. And then we have our final print statement that says, thank you for banking with us. So again, I would have you guys break away, talk about it, and come back and see if we could find the errors together. Um, but seeing that we're not together, I'm gonna go ahead and walk y'all through the errors. So our first error here is that the code adds the withdrawal to the total before checking the withdrawal, checking whether the withdrawal should be rejected, and the total gets changed even when the withdrawal should have been refused. So we know, sorry, I'm losing my train of thought again. Um, And then our second error is when the limit is hit and we break out of the loop, we never print the final total. So we don't have a total print. And the customer exit without seeing what was withdrawn. So my homework for y'all is to identify where those are and then input it into your collabs. Now, problem number 3, your guys' favorite one. Um, It is the code on your own. So we have a sales manager wants to automate their end of day sales. They want a single program that does the following. Ask each manager for the store numbers or number of stores in their region. For each store, ask the manager to enter the store's daily sales total. The program should label the prompt with the store number. So, for example, enter sales for store number three. While entering sales for each store, the program should keep a running count of three things. So, you want to keep a count of the total combined sales across all stores, how many stores hit the daily target of 1,000 or more, and how many stores fell below the target. After all stores have been entered, the after all stores have been entered, the program should print a summary for this exact format. Say total sales, stores hitting target, stores below target. So, with that in mind, let's go ahead and do that. Wait, what happened? Okay, so let's go ahead and get into it. So, oh, go ahead and follow along. So here we have num underscore stores is equal to int input how many stores in your region. Oh, I guess that should be a question. So we're basically asking the managers how many stores they have, and the input always gives us a string, so we wrap it in the int, and the int makes it a whole number. So there's no decibels needed. You can't have like 3.5 stores. It's either like three or like it has to be whole numbers. And then we're gonna do our counters. So we have total sales is equal to 0. And then we have stores underscore uh, hitting target is equal to 0. And then we have stores underscore below target is equal to 0. So with these, with our first one, we are creating a variable to hold the running total of sales across all stores. And then our second one, we're creating a counter for all the stores that have met or exceeded the $1,000 daily target. And then for the stores below target, we created a counter for everyone that fell below the 1,000. And now we're gonna go into our first for loop. So we have for store underscore number in range of 1 comma num underscore stores plus 1. And then we'll have sales equals to float input of string enter sales for store. And then you're going to do brackets for store underscore number. And then you're going to do total underscore sales is equal to total underscore sales plus sales. Okay, so what's going on here? So, our for loop, it will run exactly once for each store, and the range starts at 1 and goes up to the number of stores that are included. And then we need the +1 because the range stops before the second number. And then for our sales line, we're asking the manager to type in the sales for the specific store. So the F string just puts the actual store number in the prompt. And then for our total sales, we add this store sales to the running total. And we'll do that every single time for every store, no matter what the amount is, until all, and it'll keep adding until all stores are added. So after that, we will do an if statement. So if sales is more than or equal to 1,000, so this is just setting up our conditions now. So stores underscore hitting underscore target stores underscore hitting underscore target +1. And then we're going to backspace, and then we're going to set an else statement. Stores underscore below underscore target is equal to stores underscore below target +1. Okay, so with our if statement up here, okay, I got scared I was not recording, but I am. Okay, so with our if statement, we are checking if this store's individual sales has hit the 1,000 daily target. And it's important to note that we are checking the sales at just this one store. It is not the total sales of all stores. So this $1,000 target is just per store, not for the whole region combined. And then we go into our else statement. Oh wait, for this counter or this line, we have that this store hit the target, so we add +1 to our hitting the hitting target stores. And then we go into our else statement, and our else statement is just if the store sales were less than 1,000, then they would be booted here in the loop. And this store, if they fell below the threshold, then it would add 1 to the below target counter. So now we go into our print statements. And when we go to our next line, we're going to bring it back to the non-indented ones. So then we go to print, and then we're going to use a F string and do total sales And then I'm gonna do a little money sign, a little bracket, and then do total sales. And then we're gonna do two more print statements. And this one is gonna be print. Actually, I'm gonna let you guys do the last two print statements. Um, if you've been following along, you basically know we're gonna do a print statement for the other two. So you'll have a print statement for stores hitting target and stores below target. You have line 16, so you should know how to carry out the rest. But if you have questions, feel free to reach out. Um, I believe, yes, that is all we have planned for you today. Please submit your collab practice in the discussion sections. I hope you guys enjoy your weekend. Remember, your discussions activities are still due today at 11:59. If you guys have any questions regarding them, just let me know. And then we have homework number 2 due Monday. Um, please turn it in. There's two parts to it. You'll see a Python and a Lovable entry. Those are both due on Monday at 11:59. There is a grace period on Tuesday, but if you have any questions regarding that as well, just let me know. And again, if you guys ever want to come to office hours, don't feel shy. I'll be there. But yeah, bye. Have a good weekend.